Welcome, welcome to another show of the Johnny King Show. This is your guest, speaker, and host, and everything in between, Johnny King. And I'm here with the most female guest I have ever had on the show.
The most female.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's quite a title.
Yeah. She not only has the same last name as me,
Oh,
she
you're
also has a
right.
lot of similar genes.
And siblings.
We don't share actual genes. We have, same siblings, same parents,
That's crazy.
as far as we know. Though you never know, right?
Touche.
And she's tied for being like my number one sister.
That's crazy because you have
three
both
other people.
sisters and we're tied.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm ever going to edge ahead. Behind, actually.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who kicks the bucket first. So, yes, welcome to the Johnny King Show. We're off to a great start. I'm sitting here with my little sister here in my kitchen, and we have so many things that we want to talk about that our list here is so long.
So many things.
So let's just talk about premarital sex.
Yeah. First on the list.
Let's talk about drugs. Let's talk about all the things our mother raised us.
I was just going to say, Mom would not be proud right now.
Not to want to talk about or go into.
Oh, thanks, Mom.
So Molly is my kid sister. She's the youngest of all 5 of us siblings. You were born in the 2000s?
Goodness gracious. How young do I think I am? No, I'm an 80s baby.
She's an 80s baby.
Thankfully.
Which makes her very attuned to leg warmers.
Yeah, actually.
And a lot of
thigh masters. Scrunchies.
Prancercising. Is that what it's called?
Well, it is now. Jazzercise.
Yeah, jazzercise. But no, you've watched the video on prancercising, right?
Of course I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that everywhere.
That old lady. She's
That's how I like to grocery shop.
Yeah, exactly. And so this conversation is probably going to be like any other conversation we have,
but better,
which is great. No, I think it's cool because we don't get to choose our siblings, but if I had to choose, I would have chosen differently.
I was gonna say,
yeah, for sure.
I felt that coming.
No,
I get it. No. It's fine.
No, it is pretty cool to have not only a sister in crime, partner in crime, but also best friend in many regards. We've done a lot of things together.
It's true.
That was a clap for those of you that aren't watching the video. And,
we call those high fives, actually.
Yeah.
But it was a clap with each of us using one hand.
I mean, again, genetically, it was probably very similar to a clap. It sounded exactly the same.
Good thing I'm a little loopy.
Yeah, those listening on this show, they're wondering if they're actually going to get any value out of this, and actually,
we will.
No guarantee.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
No, I always provide.
Molly always provides.
You do too.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So, let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's
talk about your journey into chasing after your dreams.
Okay.
Let's talk about your decision to leave your job, your road trip, your book writing, your dance career, your tiny house living, your drug smuggling.
Let's get into all of it.
The pole dancing, all of the things.
All the things.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Take it away.
All right. So, when I first started on pole, it's funny because you can sneak drugs in the pole. And then when you move the poles, don't worry about it. Anyway.
Okay.
So I used to work a corporate job. The long and short story is that I graduated college. I first did an outdoor education job. But I already had a corporate job lined up, even though at the time it wasn't super corporate. It was like 4 people in an office, and we were working on selling hospitality and culinary shoes, which are those like super frumpy, anti-slip, comfortable shoes. But what was cool was our company ended up getting bought out, or acquired, I should say, and I moved from Denver to Santa Barbara, California with my company. And then,
Before I moved here,
yeah, I started it.
started it.
Yep, on my own.
Yep.
Got my first apartment on my own. It's very exciting, very scary.
Very adulting.
It was. I figured it out on my own, which
Yeah.
I was very proud of.
Yeah.
But also the nature of being the fifth child and parents being like, all right, you got it? And I'm like, yeah. And then I just figured it out.
Right.
So.
Right.
Um,
This was post mom passing away.
yes.
Yes.
Mom passed in 06.
Oh, yeah, you were still in college.
And then I graduated
right.
a little bit late because I lived in Spain for a bit, and that pushed me back.
That's right.
And bodybuilding. And then I graduated, or I walked in 09, even though I'm class of 08.
That's right.
So, yeah, I was living in Denver 09. So 3 years. Actually, that was the summer. I was living in Parker in my little apartment, and that's when we started having family meetings, and then Dad came out that summer.
It was the summer of 09.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times.
Which
I've talked about in previous episodes.
Oh, good.
But we could get
so
into
your
that
people
too,
know.
potentially.
So
my people, all my people that are listening.
All your
which
people.
if mom
if
hadn't
mom were
passed
here,
away,
it would just
she'd
be
my
Mom.
only listener. Yep.
Thanks,
hey,
Mom.
Thanks. Thanks for listening. Hey, guys, I got one subscriber, one listener.
Hi,
Thanks,
Mom.
Yeah.
Really glad you're here again today.
No, Dad listens.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. I think it's whenever he accidentally
pushes the
attempts to listen to Pete's, our brother's show, and he actually gets mine. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
darn it.
It's funny because he's like, Molly, did you know Pete has a podcast? I was like, yeah, actually, I had one like years ago. But thanks for listening.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
It's the fifth
so
child
many
syndrome.
children. So many children.
It's
so many
a lot.
podcasts.
Do you remember when we were in India and he couldn't remember either of our birthdays? And then we get on a tour. He's talking to the tour guide and he's like, are you an Aries? Is your birthday in April? And she's like, it is. And you're like, Molly, look at that. He can guess a stranger's birthday, but he can't remember his own kids' birthdays.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. But then again, when Mom would get angry, she would get through the whole list of family members, including Buffy the dog, before she got to mine.
Well, yeah, because you were never supposed to be in trouble.
Right, that's true.
My name was the top.
Yeah.
Not always the top.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So
anyway, I moved to California. I ended up working with celebrity chefs, which was super cool. We designed shoes with them. I got to do some really awesome projects. Oh, we're on video.
Mm-hmm. Oh. There you go.
All right. But yeah, so we did a lot of really cool projects, and I was 23, 24, 25 in that range.
Spring chicken.
I was sitting at the table with the CEO of $1 billion corporation and our brand president, and these celebrity chefs, and it was a really cool opportunity. As young as I was, as green as I was, I look back now and I'm like, oh man, I didn't know what I was doing. Like my old boss used to say, he's like, it's like playing organized grab ass in the dark.
Oh, that's
he had a lot of good ones.
That's a lot of good ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Slicker than snot on a doorknob. Quieter than a mouse's fart on a pillow.
Ah.
Yeah, I used to write them down.
Yeah.
That was Stuart Jenkins, who actually also prompted or helped support Lewis Howes in his career.
That's right. Yeah.
Stuart's been an awesome mentor for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I got to do a lot of things that I never thought I would do. And it's crazy because in college, I had a hunch that I wanted to work with celebrities. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, I'll go be like Ellen DeGeneres' assistant someday. Like that was one of my goals.
Yep.
Oh.
Just trying to get more on screen here. There you
go. But yeah, I did not end up being, at least not yet. I have not been Ellen DeGeneres' assistant. Mm-hmm. But getting to work with the chefs was a really good view. Got to work on the set of Master Chef a little bit and the guys from Chopped and stuff like that. So it was a cool peek into the life of Hollywood in LA from kind of a sideways door.
You though go from something that sounds pretty lucrative and exciting and adventurous like that to, you know what, I'm gonna go live out of my car for 6 months.
Why does that not sound like
it does actually, but I would
No.
say most people on that type of trajectory early in their career that you were on would be like,
let's go.
Yeah. And I remember having these conversations with you.
Yeah.
So I know everything that you're about to say.
Great.
But
I'm
I mean,
really
at
glad
least, yeah, like at least share it with them, the listeners.
No, John,
Mom.
you were a steadfast. You were like my download person. You got a lot of late night phone calls with me in tears.
I did.
Yeah.
I was asleep for most of those.
That's cool.
Just like, oh, she's still talking. Okay.
You just say yeah every now and then. Oh, that's so hard.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. You're so pretty. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there are lots of reasons. It ultimately came down to, I'd say, three main reasons. One being uh, they promoted me at one point to be in charge of all of our retail design for basically the whole Midwestern region. So
Wow.
I was working on that. And what I realized was the more I worked on that project, the more I got involved with our sales team. And ultimately, I wanted to be on brand experience, that kind of side of things. And so when I brought that up to my direct report, he was like, well, yeah, that's totally fine. We can do that in like 15 to 18 months. We can switch you over. And I was like, I can't last that long. I'm already mentally like checked out. We were talking budgets for like the rest of the year. And I was like,
That's right.
I know I'm not going to be here.
That's right.
So, yeah, I just remember thinking like, anyone can do this job, but what am I here to do that's unique? And I don't think it's going to be clocking in and out from 9 to 5. Like that's just not going to be my contribution.
Do you feel like that was that little seed in you that was growing? That little baby seed.
Oh, I named it Geppetto.
Geppetto that was growing inside you. Maybe I should switch to this analogy.
Yeah, can we? Thanks.
Do you feel like that came a lot just from just your own inner fire? Do you feel like it's a lot because of dad's entrepreneurship and example and
I think
that sort of thing? Or
there's probably layers to it that kind of all contributed. I remember writing in my journal when I was 16, like in math class, I was journaling, and actually Mr. Fisher's math class.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where I was writing this because I remember sitting and being like, I wonder who Kit Bear is going to be and who's that person going to turn into.
I learned a lot in those classes.
They were really
powerful. That's why I'm really good at math now.
Me too. Thanks, Mr. Fisher. But I remember writing like, I'm pretty sure I'll do the corporate thing for like 3 years. Like I wanted to have a cell phone and a briefcase and my chai latte. Like that was my picture.
Yeah.
And I had all those things.
Yeah.
It took, a lot to get there, but I did. And it was actually like 3 years. It was 2 weeks short of 3 years that I left that job. So I did my 3 years of corporate, but it was an awesome basis. And part of it also was I actually went to a Tony Robbins event in Fiji, which that's a different story, but I won the trip there, which was awesome. Went by myself, met some amazing people, and someone there offered me a job. Or no, it was David Destiny. Anyway, it was at a Tony Robbins event.
Right.
And I got offered a job for 6 figures, like right off the bat, just being like, I know who you are. I see who you are. I want you on my team. Let's go. And I was like, I hadn't even thought of leaving my job at that point. But that offer was a catalyst for me to really evaluate, what am I doing? Yeah. What am I doing here? And the people above me, the women who were badass, who were crushing it as like director of marketing, director of PR, I still admire greatly. I didn't see myself growing into their positions or into something of that sort. And I realized my job was making me super masculine. I was really in my masculine state, and I knew.
Were they really in their masculine as well?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think that's a requirement, kind of like, or is it just like a default?
I mean, there's probably a way, because I know like Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, which is $1 billion corporation, she's very in tune with, I feel like, her feminine, and yet she manages her company really well.
She just have to be, like you said, in tune, very intentional with choosing into it.
Yeah, and choosing that vulnerability and choosing to create, a very different culture.
Yeah.
Whereas Deckers, the company I worked for, Deckers Outdoor Corporation, was pretty heavily male. Like I was on a team, I was the only woman for many years, so I kind of had to play the game, and I wasn't sure enough in myself to bring my feminine, because I didn't know I even had that to some extent.
Right.
I'd been playing the boys game for a long time.
Been playing the boys game. You had 3 older brothers, which were kind of like obviously you looked up to all of us kind of following our leads, right?
Totally. I just want to be part of your crew. Like
But
I
then
just
even mom and Katie, without dad around, because he was a workaholic and doing, providing what he had to do for
for us.
providing
Yeah.
for 5 kids and a wife and a dog and a cat and a gerbil and some
2 guinea
fish,
pigs.
2 guinea
And your
pigs.
snake.
And I had a snake. Yep, that was a good one. Um,
It's a lot.
it required mom to be in her masculine a lot, of
Yeah,
just like
that was my
getting shit
example.
done.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot of that influence on you was
Yeah. And I don't think women have a lot of examples of, I mean, there definitely are, but a lot of the powerhouse badass women that we see are in their masculine. And so it's rare rare to see someone really imbibing their feminine, but with a fierceness and a strength that doesn't take away from their feminine side. It's a really tricky balance, and I'm still figuring it out too. But I credit my dance journey a lot to like finding and developing my feminine.
Yeah.
Because at that time, I remember I was writing down, I had a lot, like, talk about identifying misogyny within myself of not liking women. I didn't like women at all. I thought, excuse me, I thought like femininity was manipulative. I thought it was martyrdom. I thought it was weak. I thought it was crying from a very powerless state.
Do you think that also, I mean, the times that I saw, I mean, when mom would break and have her threshold
Meltdown,
moments,
yeah.
that's kind of how it showed up.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I had a best friend growing up who was really like conniving, really.
Yeah.
She lied a lot. She manipulated boys to like her. So like those 2 examples just didn't, I was like, if that's what feminine is, I don't want it.
Yeah. It's kind of like mom really wanted to be in her feminine, but because she was the CEO of
our
running
house.
the family business, that type of family business, not the family business that dad had, that the only time that she dropped into her feminine, just kind of like surrendering, was in that, from that place of just like hitting that emotional,
I'm done.
breaking point.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if dad was really necessarily, and no offense to dad per se, he just was running from his own
stuff.
demons and his own challenges, and also building his business and everything else, and not necessarily focused on creating a soft place for mom to land.
No, I don't think family culture was necessarily his top priority.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Whereas mom was all about it.
Right.
But yeah, I think just learning that I knew that if I wanted to have a partner someday, who said it well? They're like, you need to make sure that you're not being more manly than the man in your relationship. And I was like,
difficult, because a lot of men are very feminine,
yeah,
passive,
yeah,
and insecure in that sense.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be more insecure
and martyrdom.
Yeah. Which just for clarity's sake, we're not talking about actual,
manly or womanly.
Yeah, no, like you're feminine. It's not weak.
No,
it's not martyrdom.
No.
That's like the shadow side of the feminine.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And finding through dance, I felt like I finally have found a femininity that is strong, that is centered and grounded. It's expressive. It's in their flow. It's a much more intuitive kind of sense, not so much like in their head. And I really like that. So that's one thing that dance allowed me to explore within myself and start to really develop. And that's kind of what I'm writing my second book on. Spoiler alert, I have another book coming out, but oh my gosh. Yeah, is like using dance as this kind of vehicle to help explain some of these things. The masculine, the feminine, the lead, the follow, that conversation between you and your partner, you and your business, you and the universe. It's like it's all a relationship and how you're showing up to it. So
so rewind a little bit, because some people who have never met you and don't know your story at all. So just before you get into the dance stuff, because we can go down that rabbit hole for a while too, which I like to. But so eventually you just decided that 6-figure
offer was to do commercial real estate in LA.
Right.
I didn't want to live in LA.
But it just provoked
I didn't want to just chase this shiny object all the time.
More money or more.
Yeah, because to be honest, I'm not super money driven. And I knew if I just kept chasing the shiny object of whoever gave me the highest paycheck, I wouldn't actually figure out what I'm here to do.
Mhm.
Like that could totally work for some people, and that's totally fine. But I just had a nudge that I'm more than the 9 to 5, and then I have something else to do. So that's kind of when I was like, all right, I think I need to remove myself and figure that out. And that's when I sold everything and got in my car and drove
The
around
idea
the US.
was to find yourself. The idea was just
It was
to.
initially when I quit my job. At that point, honestly, I was like, oh, I love cooking. I love paleo cooking at the time. I didn't realize I was using cooking as a coping mechanism, but I was. And I thought I was going to do a tour around the US, visit farmers market, go and be a woofer,
That's
a
right.
wild or a wilderness out, not woofer.
A woofer.
That stands for something, but there's like a organic farming thing where you can go and volunteer at organic farms.
A wanker. Wanker? A woofer? Yeah.
I don't remember what it's
I
called.
can keep going down that, and I won't. Choosing.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Good choice. But I was initially going to go to like farmers markets and then these organic volunteer, and then do a book on how to eat healthy but do it on the cheap.
Right.
And then so I started in Santa Barbara. The overall picture was Santa Barbara to San Diego, across and down to Miami, up to Maine, across to Seattle and down. By the time I left Santa Barbara and I got to Phoenix, I knew I didn't want to be and then the panic attack started.
Right.
I was like, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
And I could only hear like my former boss's like voice in my head telling me like I'm not doing enough and I'm not good enough and blah blah blah. Yeah, I remember falling, like I hadn't had a panic attack before, but I had several nights of panic attacks where I couldn't breathe, my heart was pounding. And those didn't stop until I got to Dallas. And I stayed in each place a little bit. So anyway, I ended up staying with over like 80 family and friends.
It's amazing.
It was awesome. I wrote a lot of thank you notes and didn't pay for a single night of lodging on that whole 6 months of driving.
Very generous.
Yeah, it was amazing. Amazing.
Which is testament to your ability to create, deep friendships and quality, quality friendships all around the country and all around the world, really.
I mean, yeah, some people I didn't know that well, but they were very sweet and generous to open up their homes.
Yeah.
I wish I had a montage. This is something like talk about going back and getting content, but like I wish I had a montage of each person who handed me the keys to their house and was like, okay, I have to go to work, but here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Just like so much generosity, so much openness.
Trust.
And yeah, I mean, granted, I am like a white female. I don't pose much of a threat. And I understand that, but there is something to be said of like, I built up trust over lots of years. I was able to quote unquote bank off of it for this trip. And it was incredible. And the trip did turn into like me finding myself to a large extent and figuring out like, oh, okay, dance is probably something I do want to pursue. I was super scared to do it.
Yeah.
But that was the nudge. So I moved to Dallas after that
You moved to Dallas and you started getting into West Coast swing.
Yeah, I was already into it. I was
not
4
pole
years
dancing.
No.
Although you did do a little bit of that.
I have done it a few times,
in
Maui. Maui and in other places, yeah.
What?
Oh, hey.
Don't tell me about those other places.
It's very athletic. I have a lot of respect for pole dancing.
Yeah. It's even more challenging when you are eating and dancing.
That's impressive.
Which I thought was where you're going to go with that book.
Yeah.
Traveling the country.
Just put all the things you love together.
It's like a paleo pole dancing blog.
That's a niche that has not been.
This is an amazing meal to eat.
While
with
you're
one
spinning.
hand. Yeah.
It doesn't fly everywhere. Smoothies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have to think bigger, Molly.
Thank you, Dad.
Yeah. So you've been on the West Coast swing.
I've been on the West Coast swing train for over 10 years now.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And you now are a pro.
I guess technically, yes. I get paid to teach.
Yeah.
And sometimes I win things.
For anyone that doesn't dance West Coast would look at you and be like, yeah, you're a pro.
Oh,
you pro.
Shit, girl.
You pro.
Actually, I was in a bar before when bars could be open. And I was just talking with my friend forward and we were like chatting. And then as we're walking out of the building, this woman and her husband come up, and the woman is, or the husband was like, "My wife and I have a bet. Are you a professionally trained dancer?" And I was like, I mean, I guess so. And the wife is like, "See?"
Did she recognize you?
I guess just from like the way I moved, somehow it looked, and I wish I had had the wits about me to be like, how, what, huh?
Was that how you opened the door and like spun around it and like?
Yeah, and I probably like hit a line. It's like, I'm here, everyone.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, I guess I don't look like a normal pedestrian person anymore in the
No,
way I move.
you're a white, privileged white dancer.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah,
Facts.
facts.
It's true.
Kind of is.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so I am a trained dancer technically. I started in hip hop. Mom put me in a bunch of those little classes with like the tutus and the
Yeah,
things. So I
yeah.
did that when I was younger.
Yeah.
Hip hop in high school and college. And I just knew I loved performing, and I randomly stumbled on West Coast, and I remember my first scene of it. I was like, this is the dance I never knew I always wanted. Like I know my body can move like that. I just haven't learned how yet. But I loved it. And I love seeing women, especially actually one of the weird things was that I walked into this room actually here in Denver at the Turnverein, and I remember seeing older women, probably like 50s, 60s, maybe 70s, excuse me, and they were moving in such a beautifully feminine way. And they were sexy and they owned themselves and they were graceful, all things which I didn't think I had at all. I remember verbatim thinking, I do not have a sexy bone in my body. Like, this is just not me.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing those women and I was like, shoot, if they can do it at their age,
Yeah.
maybe
You could do it by their
could.
age.
Yeah, basically. There might be hope
50
for me
years
yet.
later. Yeah. No.
So yeah. So it was really, it's been a journey. I don't think I would be who I am. I would not be who I am without West Coast Swing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So
Well, and I'm talking about with a lot of guys that they need some sort of masculine,
activity.
practice.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I just enjoy lifting and sports and going to the gym
Totally.
and mountain biking and hiking and like just even being. I mean, that's what brought me out here to Colorado was
that lifestyle.
Yeah, the masculine energy of the mountains, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think that's totally valid. I think everyone should have, like, whether your core is masculine or feminine, whichever, find something that like supports that and can help you bring it out, because I think we all have it. And to the other side, I did CrossFit for many years. That was one of the ways that I got my masculine energy out. And I think it's good to have within myself just a good like channel to bring out both.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
Well, let's take a quick pause to get a notice from our sponsors.
Yeah.
For this next segment.
Sounds great.
Water. This segment's sponsored by water. Great. So thanks, Molly, for that first segment. I would say let's do another intermission real quick and tell me, and then I will tell you, what is one of your funniest memories of Johnny?
Funniest.
Or most memorable. It could be the worst, actually, because there's plenty of those too.
There's so many.
Yeah. The most inappropriate. There's a lot of those.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately.
I do. Well, this is not like the funniest, but this is one, when you said inappropriate, this is what came to mind.
Oh, gosh.
I won't use the words that you used.
No, please do. Please do.
So I was walking into corporate work back in the day, and I was on my phone, and I walk into the building. We had been talking on the way to work, so like our conversation was normal. And then I think you could hear me like scanning my card and going in the building, and you're like, "Oh, you're at work." And I was like, "Yeah." And then you just start saying the most inappropriate things to make me laugh. And I only remember one of the things, which I'm not going to say on your podcast, but it was very inappropriate.
Mm.
And then I couldn't stop laughing. So then I just started like, I go to my cube and I'm like giggling. And there's like Justin and Sazia from the next room, like, what's going on? It's like, nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
That happens a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Like Thanksgiving table with Dado telling stories, and you would like lean over and say something just so that I could hear it and no
but
one else could.
There'd be times when you're across the table.
Oh, that's true.
And I would say boner.
Yeah.
Or penis.
Or sex.
Or something like that while everyone's talking and no one would hear me but you, and you would choke on your turkey. And you look at me like, did you just literally say that loud?
And no one
just
heard
keep
you?
Eating? Yep.
Well, because you'd also start with like, boner.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, speaking of Thanksgiving.
Oh, good. I'm glad that's the topic you chose from that sentence.
Yeah. How old were you?
Which one?
Yeah,
the Thanksgiving?
Exactly. The time that you tied
Dan
Schneider's shoelaces.
Oh, my gosh. I was probably 8.
8 years old.
So, yeah. So our older sister was on a choir tour, I think, and that's why he was there. I don't know. I ended up working with him later in life. But
yeah, that's right. I think that's right.
I think it was from their choir. I forget what it's called. Anyway, so we were having Easter dinner, and Dan Schneider, who I think is great in real life.
Shout out, Dan.
Hey, Dan. He's a tall guy. He's a solid man, and maybe 6'2"-ish.
I think he's at least 7 foot.
Probably.
He's
imagine
a tree
this
of a man.
tree of a man.
He's a gorilla. He just loves gorillas.
That's
Anyways,
cute.
Go ahead.
So anyway, so we all have Easter dinner around a big long table that we used to do.
Is it Easter?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Thanksgiving.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's Easter. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't matter.
There is still Jello with the like weird things inside of it on the lettuce leaf, because who eats lettuce with Jello? Ugh. So anyway, I finished my dinner probably at the kids' table, which is next door. But I just thought it would be fun to climb underneath the table. So like Mom got up to take dishes, and I'm sure I like scooted under there. People probably saw me but didn't think anything of it because I'm just a kid. Yeah. So I'm under there. Maybe I'm younger than 8. I don't remember. But yeah, I'm just like sitting under there, like looking at the table, and there's like little things to look at. But then I realized like, oh, Dan, who I didn't really know, I was like, he has shoes that can be tied. And I think one of them had like a lace that was a bit untied. So I was like, oh, this will be fun. I'll just tie them together. I didn't really think about where this was going to go. A testament to the brain of a child, just in the present moment, just loving life, doing what I do.
Making magic moments.
Yeah, that was fun for me, tying those together. Yep. And then I kind of forgot about it, and I ended up leaving because I got bored and they were just chatting. Yeah. Left. I'm on like the other side of the house near the office or mom and dad's room. Yeah. And then I hear this major like thud, and the whole house shook. Yep. And I remember, I think it was Mom who was like, Molly! And I got so scared. And I scooted into that little bathroom by Mom and Dad's room, and I locked the door, and I did not come out until everyone was gone. Yeah. I was so scared I was going to get something was happening to me.
That was well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, another great memory, really great memory, which I'm sure didn't leave any residual trauma, was when we left you at Target.
Oh, it was the Ventura. It was Venture.
The Venture.
Yeah, like pre-Target.
That was pre-Target.
With like the black and white logo.
Yeah, but in my mind it was Target. But
it was Venture.
Right. Venture.
Yeah, it was the Previa. So
Previa.
Yeah,
Toyota
no
Previa.
trauma, but it probably did shape in my entire life, and I still haven't made any issues. But it's like fine.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we were driving. We drove away.
Well, that's the thing, because we all went to the car. You got in the front seat with Mom, or like your front. She was driver. I was trying to get the sliding door open, but it was a new Previa.
Yeah.
And it was super, like, it took a lot of strength to open, and I was small.
Right.
And so I couldn't get it open, and you guys start moving, and I'm like holding onto the door as you're moving.
Must hold on.
And then I just had to like go and like watch you drive away.
Yeah.
And be like, well, That was fun
Yeah.
having a family.
And then we're driving home, and of course, mom and I are talking, and then she's like, Molly, get out from out of there and get your seatbelt on. It's not safe. You know,
Because she
she's
thought I was in like the way, way
she
back,
thought you were
right?
in the way, way back. Correct. But then as I like started looking, because the the
The
glass was curved, you could see the reflection, and I could see like, Mom, I don't think she's back there. She's like, what? So she had me like cry Molly back. I'm like, Molly's not in the car, and we were a good 5 minutes away at
Oh yeah,
least.
I watched you like go down the street and turn, and I just remember like standing there crying.
Yeah,
I was probably like 4 or 5.
yeah.
And this sweet old lady sees me in the parking lot as this
Oh
tiny
gosh,
child,
Mom.
and she like takes me inside. I don't think we didn't have cell phones. We didn't even have a car phone at that point,
Yeah, I don't.
or
I
maybe
feel.
we did have a car phone.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
It
that must
was
that was early '90s, right?
yeah,
Or like 90, 91,
90.
something like
Yeah.
that. I just I if I remember correctly, we came back and you actually were just standing out there holding her hand. She was in. You were in. She was in tears. No, you were in tears, and she just was scowling
Seething.
at Mom, and Mom was so embarrassed. She was like,
It's hard when you have 5 kids to keep them all
"Oh my
in
gosh,"
line or in.
or in the car.
Yeah, at all. It's amazing we all made it.
How many times did Mom leave without us? For school. Granted, that one time I remember when she left, and I was like, mother, and I got on my bike and I beat her to school. So then I was
Oh.
out there playing. What's the game with
Oh,
the ball?
tetherball.
Tetherball. As she pulled up, and she just looked at me like, and I was like, hi.
Of course
As I
you
was like
were.
sweating through my school clothes, like, fuck you, Mom.
Showed you
Yeah,
you could
haha.
pedal fast.
Yeah, I'm a
Or the
little.
one time she couldn't find the car keys, and so we had to walk in the snow to school.
Yeah,
That was fun. And then she found them like as soon as we got to school in the couch.
of course.
Yeah,
Kind of difficult to keep track of 5 children.
true. And I'm sure we were not helpful. We probably put the keys there or something, like knowing kids.
Yeah,
Like, this is a fun game.
yeah.
Yeah, I ended up just hiding a lot and hoping someone would miss me.
Do you remember? Yeah, that was,
Let's see
and
if
but that
anyone
was the
notices.
thing. I think that's why we got accustomed to like calling you and you'd never responding or coming out.
No, because
That was,
well, also my thought process. I mean, I think it's genius.
it is
Is that I
genius.
was usually getting in trouble for something, because I was, and then I figured if I hid, then if I was gone long enough, people would be so scared and upset that they lost their sweet Molly,
Yeah,
right?
distraction tactic.
Yeah, that by the time they found me, they'd be so much more like, "Oh, I'm just glad you're here," and
Yeah,
they would forget all about that nasty thing I did to someone.
we would find you just like asleep under your bed often,
Oh yeah,
or
I
in the
mean, it got
closet.
tiring.
Like there was only so many places that you could hide.
Speaking of, I mean, we're on this tangent.
Did you
Um,
sleep underneath my bed last night?
no,
Oh, okay.
I mean, maybe no. Do you remember when you locked me in my trunk for camp? I was packing my
Mm.
trunk, and you always put the bedding in first, and you were like, "You can't fit in there."
Ha,
And
ha,
I was
ha,
like,
ha.
"Yes, I can." So I hop on in, and then you're like, "But it won't close." And I was like, "Yes, it will. Shut." And you're like, "Yeah, but it won't lock." And I was like, "Try it. Lock, padlock, do
Yeah,
do."
yeah.
And then you're like, "Okay, bye." And I was like, "Wait, no, no."
Yeah, none of those things are traumatic.
No, not at all. And then I just fell asleep in there because I was like, well, I'm here.
Oh,
Oh, also, you rolled me up in a carpet and left me there. Also, I climbed, well, somehow I got into one of the big recycling things. Then you sat on the top and wouldn't let me out.
these are all payback for what I got from Pete and Katie.
Oh,
Primarily
interesting.
Pete.
So it's like generational
I was like in the
hurt.
middle, so it's just like I learned from
That's true.
getting teased and being offered all these
And then
things
who
and
do
being
I
tied up to
tease?
trees, and then he'd leave, or Pete
He
would be
te-
like, "Look at my fingers, boink." So then I'd go to school blind and crying all day because
do
he'd
you
poke
remember?
my eyes out.
Do you remember when you put me on a forklift and then raised it all the way up and then left me there? I
Totally.
feel like there's a theme going on here.
Put you in harm's way and then leave you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No wonder I cry alone at
Great,
night all the time.
great brother. Yes.
This is great. Somehow we're friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Bonding.
bonding.
We did have a lot of fun playing lava game.
That's true. Yeah. I still think that was the highlight of our childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never won though.
I mean, I got
So
to say,
close.
I'm the
Oh yeah, that's
winner
right.
sometimes. And then I would get tackled.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times.
Good times.
That was a good trip down memory lane.
Yeah. So getting back to dance.
Yeah, let's go back.
Oh, let's take another break for
Oh.
our next sponsor.
Our next sponsor.
Yeah.
Cold water.
Internet. Thanks,
Of
Internet,
things.
for supporting us on this next segment. No, for real though, you pretty ballsy. We were hiking in
Tetons.
the Tetons. I say the
Le
Tetons.
téton.
Les Tetons,
Oui.
which I believe is French for
Les tétons.
biscuits.
Oh, uh-huh.
Something like that, right?
Oui.
Supple biscuits.
Yep.
Yep. And we were just hiking by some grizzlies.
Oh, yeah. We came within like 5 feet of that one.
No big deal.
That was, and then we sang all the way down and
Yeah.
clapped
Yeah.
to make sure we would be alive.
That was a little bit
That was hairy.
disconcerting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was worth it.
Totally worth it. That lake was beautiful.
We lived through it. But we were talking about relationships, I think.
Probably.
And you were a little frustrated, like, I'm not sure if I'm not finding quality and this and that.
Oh, that's right.
And I was
like same
yeah,
patterns.
But like Breckenridge is like, it's a mountain town. I don't know how much quality.
A lot of lost boys up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of just like perpetual.
I remember thinking to myself, or I think I asked you, I was like, okay, you're however old you were a couple years ago. And I was like, doing the rocking chair test, if you look back on your life from 105 years old.
Thank you.
What would you potentially regret not doing at the age of 30 something that you haven't done yet? And you said, I would want to have said that I sought after my professional dancing career.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you also had another dream of living in a tiny home.
Yeah.
Which really connected you with our childhood.
It did. Well, boxcar children and small spaces and falling asleep in small spaces.
Yeah.
Nooks.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love me a good nook.
Oh, man. You love to nookie nook in nooks, from what I understand. Word on the street is.
Word on the street. Anyway, going on.
So, I challenged you.
Yeah.
I said.
Well, yeah. You basically said, why not? And I gave you a bunch of excuses.
Yeah.
And then you slowly like removed them and said, well, you wouldn't have to do it that way. Like you do have a choice in how you operate and do.
Yeah. And I remember just thinking like, why don't you find a partner, a dance partner that you can count on?
Yeah.
You know, I was just making stuff up. I'm like, and have him move near you or you move near him so you guys can just dance
all the time.
And see what that might look like, and maybe just commit 1 full year.
Yeah.
So last year.
So that was last year.
So that was, but right before that, so you decided to move from Breck, which was difficult because you had
I had my little community there.
And
yeah.
You were skiing 50 days a year, and good life up there for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
It sucked to dance. I had to drive an hour and a half down to Denver on Highway 70 through the snow sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
That was not ideal.
That's not ideal.
But yeah, that was summer of 2018, and
just within the next 4 months from there.
Yeah, I made it happen.
You made it happen. You found a buddy of yours, right? Kind of connected. He lived not far, just in Salt Lake. So you packed up.
We had a couple meetings.
Yep. And you made it happen.
Yeah.
And you traveled how many weekends last year?
Close to 30. It might have been more than 30.
Close to 30.
Yeah.
So you hustled your side gigs, your side hustles to keep that dream afloat, to do whatever you can. Because I remember you saying like, I have like $30 in my account.
Yep.
And I don't know how I'm going to get home from this trip, right?
Yeah.
But then you would like win. I just won $250. Holy shit, you know?
And then I'm like, I can get an Uber home.
Yeah.
And pay for a meal or two.
Right. So you definitely hustled that.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it was incredible all year long. And credit to my dance partner who would like, pimp is not the right word.
Pimp you out?
Yeah. But no, he would encourage people to take private lessons with me. And it would come at like the right time where I'd be like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this next flight, but we have to be there to compete.
Yeah.
And then someone would buy a package from me, and I'd be able to use that money directly to pay for the next flight. So literally my people in Salt Lake like helped me fund last year to make it happen, which was awesome.
Yeah, pimping out would not be the right
Not
word.
the right term, but he was really good at, encouraging people
And
to
that big purple hat that he'd wear, and the cane, and the
and the
Cadillac that he would
monocle.
drive in, like, yeah.
It's
Other than that,
weird.
yeah,
I mean, it's a stereotype for a reason, but whatever.
right.
No, but that was really cool, and it came together every time. It was crazy. I would not know how I'm gonna make my next thing happen, and it always did.
What was some of the bigger takeaways from that year of? Because it wasn't, I know, like injury and
Oh my gosh, that
lack
was
of sleep
awful.
and stresses,
Yeah,
and never
and
being home because you're kind of a homebody too.
I am. Like pandemic has been great. I like being home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we got in. So I moved to Salt Lake February 1st, moved into my tiny home, and I had 2 weeks to kind of get set up and settled in. And then we did 9 weekends in a row on the road, which it's such a first world problem, but like it's so draining in so many ways. And I'm
It's
like an
being
introvert.
it's you're being a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's physically and emotionally, because when you're at these weekend events, like you're on, and there's so many people that I love seeing. So I'm just like very like out there and extroverted. And then I come home to rest up, but I also have friendships in Salt Lake that I want to foster. And I was trying to date a little bit, which ultimately I was like, I don't have time for this. So, but I would come home and I would have to go to the laundromat to do my laundry because I didn't have it. I'd have to cook and prep meals and grocery shop. And this was like between Monday night and then Thursday night. So I really felt like I was just home Tuesday, Wednesday. And then I was folding, putting everything back in my suitcase and going again. And James and I would be practicing all of those days so that we'd be ready for the next weekend.
Right.
And then getting coaching so that we could be better, hopefully.
But it's pretty cool again, though. I don't think you would have ever been up for that type of commitment and that type of adventure had you not quit your corporate job.
Oh, totally.
Traveled, like you traveled around the country, just seeing that 80 people opened their homes to you.
Yeah.
You kind of entrusted the same type of process to, knowing that even though you didn't have the resources, you were resourceful.
True.
Correct?
Yeah.
Because so many people say that, like, oh, I could never do that. I have to do this. Like,
yeah.
If you could consolidate
all of your expenses,
and just have a very small footprint.
Yeah.
But really go for it.
Yeah.
I
to some extent, the excuses are always going to be there, and I can either have excuses or results.
Right.
And so it's up to me to be like, all right, well, what do I not want to regret later? And it's been interesting, like this year, it was kind of sad because we were kind of picking up momentum. We were starting to get hired. We were hired to judge in South Korea and in Albuquerque and Colorado and Oregon. And it was like, oh, this is happening. It's like really for real. We're on staff at all these things. And then coronavirus hit, and then everything got canceled this year.
Of course.
So I've had to kind of mourn that too and give myself space to like, okay, so this was going to be our breakout year. Plans are obviously changing. I don't know how it's going to affect the trajectory, but my mantra now is like, work on what I can right now. Like that's all I really can control.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think it goes to the whole of this podcast for me, which is like, I'm going to share with you the things that I've learned, and hoping that the listeners can get some nuggets that they can apply to their lives, because this is life, which is, you think you have this certain trajectory and then you lose your job, or
someone dies
or someone dies, or someone walks out on you, or, you break your leg, or a global pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just going to be life. And I think a lot of people have put their lives on pause.
I mean, I was tempted to
Yeah.
to just be like, well, I'll just wait until we push play again.
Right.
But I mean, it's very much like West Coast Swing in that like the leader initiates the momentum, and I'm sure the leader thinks like, oh, okay, I'm moving her down the slot this way with this much speed and this much energy, and he thinks it's going to go a certain way, but then all of a sudden she throws in a variable, whether she creates a shape in that turn or whatever, and it totally changes where he was going to go. And it's so interesting, like you can tell leaders who in the dance who are not okay with variables being thrown at them and those who are. And it's really cool when those who are, and they basically just say, all right, bring it on. Like, what do you got? And, oh, okay, I love that shape. Oh, I'm going to take that arm and kind of move her around here. Oh, we're going to turn that into a dip. And like, it becomes this whole new thing. And sometimes you come out of it, you're like, how did we just do that? That was awesome.
Right.
And that's kind of how I've been thinking about, like, okay, so this is our change in trajectory. And if I'm able to say yes, and this could be really cool.
Right.
If I just kind of like lay down and I'm like, well, I guess this is it, then I think we both know where that's going to go.
Right. Well, what a great metaphor for relationships, for life, and all that stuff, because you say, like, yeah, it's interesting to support your cultivating your feminine,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which you said earlier, which is like, yeah, and then I you know, kind of connect with a masculine leader,
Yeah.
which isn't, it's true and it isn't, right? Like it's like he initiates, so he's leading for a hot second
Yeah.
until you do something
And then he has to listen.
where you actually are then leading
Yep.
by your
Totally.
decision. Then he has to actually follow you
And
and
respond.
respond, and then pick up something, and then so it's a constant dance of going back and forth between leading and following, because you're not just constantly following,
No.
you're constantly creating as well.
Yeah.
So you're ebbing and flowing between the masculine and the feminine all day long. So is he.
Yeah.
Right.
Ideally. Yeah.
Right.
There's
Otherwise, the guys that get egotistical about it and say, no, I want to lead, right,
those are
they're
not
probably
fun people to dance
they're
with.
not great to play with, right?
No.
Or to dance with.
It's like, and if you think about it as a conversation, like he says something and I respond and then he responds. Like we're going in that way, but there are some leaders and there's some followers too who just talk the whole time or shout the whole time. And you're like, dude, like also give me a breath. Like I need to, ooh, you can't just spin me the whole time.
Yeah.
Or like dictate every single move of mine. Right. Like that's a dictatorship. It's not a co-creationship.
Right.
So yeah, if that's ideally the thought is like I'm now looking at my life as so much within this dance metaphor of that intersection between dance and life, and using dance as this like metaphor to help me kind of elucidate various aspects of my life, and dating too, and like all these different things, that it's like, all right, if I go and I'm just looking to connect versus trying to get my agenda across, like I'm going to have such a better experience without trying to anticipate and create a certain outcome.
Yeah.
If I'm just connected and I see where it goes.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, just to wrap things up and talk about relationships and what have you seen versus what I've seen, and the difference between masculine and feminine. And because that's, I mean, I think that's a concept that people are getting more familiar with, but then there's some people that aren't familiar with that at all. You know, can you explain the masculine and feminine from your perspective? In 10 seconds.
Okay, ready? Go. I guess to me, the masculine, which can be men or women or bi or trans or whatever.
It's just that we all have masculine and feminine energies to express.
Yes.
Correct.
And so the masculine energy to me is very outcome oriented. It's very driven. It seems more linear. It's very focused. Feminine energy is a little bit more like water. Like it'll flow. It's strong, but it's also very tender, and it can, I love this idea. It can bend to the will of a finger, but it can support an entire ship. Like how cool is that? Like that is the feminine to a T. And I think we all need both of it, but I also think we each have a core that is usually resonant with one or the other. There are probably a few people who are either neutral or somewhere in the middle. But yeah.
I refer to it as like a hardwiring.
Yeah.
I'm more hardwired masculine. That's where I prefer to go, when I feel alive and excited and that sort of thing is when I'm actually in my masculine.
Yeah.
Would you say that you're...
I am now. I was hardwired, quote unquote, to be masculine because that was safe.
You're hardwired to be feminine, but you're programmed, right?
Conditioned. Yeah, whatever. Like it felt safer to be in my masculine because it wasn't vulnerable. I wasn't going to get rejected. Like my feminine, if I was there, it felt like, oh, well, if I'm there, I'm more vulnerable. And if I'm rejected when I'm vulnerable, that hurts more. So if I just stay in the masculine, I can't be rejected.
Right.
Great. Problem solved.
Right.
But yeah, I think, at least to me, I look at dating now as like a Jack and Jill competition, which in our dance, Jack and Jill is when you already know this, but when you're paired up with someone randomly, you rotate the leaders and the followers, and then you land on someone, you introduce yourself.
Musical chairs.
But someone always, well, Usually you have a partner. And then they play a song and you dance.
Yeah.
And you don't plan it, you don't talk about it, you don't choreograph anything, and you don't even know the song.
Right.
So it's pretty much,
Dating.
yeah, it's dating. It's it's improv
Improv.
in your movement,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So to me, and the way that I approach those Jack and Jill competitions, everyone has their own like routine to get in the zone, and I have my routine. And I feel like I've started treating dates as Jack and Jill's. So I'm not putting pressure on this and like, you have to be my marriage partner. It's just like, I'm here to create a good connection. I want to see where you are. I want you to see where I am. And the more I'm anchored in myself, the more I'm grounded in who I am, the easier it is for my partner, my dating person, to understand where I am and to adjust. But if I keep kind of, which is what I did for a long time in my dance career, I'd just be like, where do you need me? Oh, I'll go over here. Oh, you want me here? Like, I was just always trying to guess what he wanted and be that for that. It was like, I was just a shapeshifter. I wasn't actually,
Chameleon.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I was so scared to kind of ground myself and kind of hold my center. But I found that when I actually did that and I let myself take my time and be patient, he actually knew where I was all the time. Our communication was so much better in the dance and so much more clear. And all of a sudden, we understood where we each were. And vice versa, when I have a leader who's like barely there, I hate it because I'm like, I can't. You're not. You're not a variable I can actually work with because you're always changing.
How does that show up using that analogy in relationships that you've experienced?
I've been a lot more uh, clear with who I am and what I want, not in a like dictator way, but just like, oh, yeah, I don't like that, but that's cute that you do. Like that you're totally. Whereas before, I'd be like, oh, well, I could see how that would work. Like maybe I could be this, or like, oh, you like that music too? Yeah, sure, I do too. It's like, just tell me what you like. Just be you,
Yeah.
unabashedly,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be like. Uh, it doesn't have to be super direct all the time, but it can just be calm and confident. And I don't have to prove anything. And I don't have to come out with all these whistles and bells and like tricks. It's like, I'm good enough as I am. And if you stick around, you'll get to know that I have a lot more to it.
Right.
But I don't need to go and show off everything all at once to prove to you that I am good enough,
Right.
which was also how I used to dance.
Right. Which I think is how a lot of people
Date.
date
Yeah.
or show up in marriages.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, I like to think. I mean, the way that I see it a lot is like, just because it's easy for people who are married to be like, oh, we got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You
You'll
know,
get there
but you'll get there
someday.
someday.
Cute.
When you have kids or when you're
When
married
you've
and you're like,
arrived.
just because you're married or just because you have a ring or a signed, marriage license doesn't actually mean that you're
You've got it
exemplifying
figured
something
it
that I
out.
want to that I
Yeah.
want to follow in suit. So I think that's important to look at, and it continues to go back to that whole idea of being intentional.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
about what you want, intentional about healing because we all have our wounds,
Yeah.
so that we don't show up as a chameleon, because guys totally do it. I totally have done it in the past, where it's like, oh gosh, like I feel insecure, she's so beautiful or whatever, then I gotta, and then I have no true north. Right.
No. And she can feel that, and that's not
Of
a
course.
stable partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Again, and a lot of it comes from that, and then people who are married even or in long-term relationships wonder where the spark has gone. And I think a lot of it still comes back to these unhealed wounds.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and just the spontaneity, like even in a dance partnership, like if you dance with someone enough, you get into a rut of like, oh, well, he does that move and this is how I respond.
Predictable.
Totally. Yeah. And I noticed once I was filming my dance partner in a competition, and he was dancing with an incredible follower, and he led something that he leads to me all the time, but she took it and she brought it into such a different, she turned it into a ride, which basically like he moves around her and she spins. But I'd never thought about doing that before. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out on other aspects of this dance if I throw in other variables, but that's on me. I had been playing victim to like, oh, he's not leading moves that create new things for me. And it's like, no, I can do that too. I can bring newness to this.
Right.
Like
takes two people to really have that conscientious commitment, keeping something fresh.
Yeah. And it's not easy. Like you have to turn your brain on. and like show up, which
Right.
I had not been at that point. And so it
Right.
was like, oh, okay, I need to bring
Yeah.
something back to the table.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's on all of us to kind of make that a
Absolutely.
process.
Otherwise, it does become, and then we just, you start going through the 4 R's of, a failing relationship, and you start resenting that person because they're so predictable.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this for years versus looking at like, well, have you changed at all? Have
Yeah.
you really,
Have I
you know,
brought? Can you bring a resenting, then repression, and then rejection?
are you going through them?
Yeah.
Uh,
I was hoping you would help fill in the gaps.
no, first is resistance.
Oh, right.
It just shows up as like,
Like a
I
grading.
don't love that you did that, but I'll let it slide.
Yeah. You
And
don't
then
say
it turns
anything.
into resentment,
Yeah, that builds.
repression,
You
and
don't
then
say anything.
revenge.
Revenge. I thought there's a rejection, but maybe not.
There's a rejection. There's a couple different versions
There's
of it.
all the R's.
Rejections or revenge, which could be like, I'm rejecting you, or it's the
Mm.
same. It's just different
Different ways of it
syntax.
coming
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to
to withhold love.
I'm not gonna give you sex because I resent you and blah 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 and all
Yeah.
that stuff. That's revenge. It's resentment, or
True.
it's
Rejection.
rejection. It's
Yeah.
whatever the case.
Or you didn't show up the way I wanted you to, so I'm not going to give
Right.
you
Right.
good energy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, really, really fascinating. I want to thank you
Well, I thank you. Thanks
so
for
much
having me.
for coming by.
Thanks for being my brother,
Thanks for
my
being
bro,
here.
from the same
Make sure
mo.
you clean your room
Thanks, Mom.
and do your dishes. Yep.
It's really special.
Yep. Appreciate you. And if you ever hit me, I will hit you back 81 times
81
harder.
times harder. That's why I don't hit you anymore.
That's a good thing.
It's natural consequences.
Because I've gotten stronger and stronger over the years. Don't
I'm
do
not
it.
going to
Don't
do
do
it. I'm scared.
You will
And
cry.
Mom is not, well, she didn't protect me anyway. She's like,
we
honey,
will-
you hurt him. That's natural consequences.
Natural consequences.
I learned that from a young age.
Yep.
Don't mess.
Don't mess.
Don't get in the fire. No, don't get in the kitchen if you can't stand the heat.
Don't step on the toes of the
Of the
cooks.
hand that feeds you.
Yeah, something like that. So if that's all you get from this podcast, write that one down, folks. You probably have no idea what we just said because we just screwed up all
It's
of the
sibling language. Like, we're just on a different level, you guys.
Oh man. No, thank you.
Good times.
Thanks for being on.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and visiting. Thanks for being a champion. Thanks for being my favorite of all my females
sisters
that I've had on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thanks.
And being tied for being my favorite sister
That's too nice.
out of all.
You're the best
of
middle
this.
brother that I could have asked for.
I'm still an older brother though.
But you're the middle.
Yeah, but I'm still an older. I will always be older.
You're my favorite older middle brother. Always.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. Till next time, thank you guys for tuning in. And we hope we didn't just waste an hour of your life. And if you did feel like that,
You're welcome.
email Molly at mollyking.com.
.com.
You don't even have that email anymore, do you?
No, but I have mollyking.com.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Take care, guys.